everyone. So in this part of the video we'll be looking at on how to map through all the data that's coming from Strapi into your front end. For example, this is the example of the block that we would like to display as, and for all the details, all the blocks that we have stored inside our Strapi in the form of content, like in couple of blocks, and you guys can able to see it in here. For example, let's go to content manager. As you can see, we have one blog here, so and it is published. So let's go and make this blog as this particular blog here, and this is basically all of this actually dummy data. Dummy data is actually coming directly from your hard-coded part of within the code itself. So that's the part of that we are going to cover in this particular part of the video. So first of all, let's go to our code, and there's two lines of code that we should be adding, just so that we are able to run this particular use fetch function without any error, or if there is an error we can actually diagnose it on the spot. So that's why we need to add these two lines of code. So the first two lines of codes are, let me just add it here. Okay, so basically this is the two lines of code that we should be adding, which is if loading, return loading, and if error, return console log. This is just to make sure that your API is able to run it without any problems. So that's the basic idea. So right now, as our intention is to bring the data that's coming from this API, and we need to transfer it, wire it to, we need to like channel it into this block index component. So this is the block index component that we are calling from its source code, which is here in this particular block index code here. And this is the way this is the code that we're gonna send the data into. So basically this is the code from app.js. From app.js we're gonna transfer it, we're gonna wire it into this block index component, and this component will be able to receive it in its code itself. This is the source code of block index. So that's the idea of this particular part of the code is going to be about. So let's go to its export function. So as you can see, this is the export default here, and whatever that's being inside these two these two bracket, which is here, and this is the opening and this is the closing, is here. Okay, so this is the two opening, and this is the brackets that we are supposed to fill in the data that is coming. It can be stored as a parameter. So what we do, all this data that has already been stored prior to this video is actually the dummy data that's coming, that's making all this data. So all this actually coming directly from this dummy data basically. So let's say if we were to comment all of this, what happens is, let's just give like a comment here, and of course there'll be an error because we have not, as you can see there's some error because as you can see this post is not declared, post is not defined. As you can see, let's go to the code itself. As you can see, the post, heading tags and posts are not defined because we have just commented it. So what we can do instead, we can actually just bring this heading text and just place it on top here, and of course we need to define it, we need to declare it by saying let heading text equals to blog post. And the next thing that we should be doing is that let me just save it for a while, save it first, and right now you will be having an error of post and posts are not undefined, actually are undefined. So basically this is the one that's going to be one that makes it into a number of blocks that are the data this is the data of the blocks that are currently filling up the page. So what we can do here, this is the time that we can actually pass the data of post instead of this dummy data. We can pass this API content into this particular component in the form of post. So that's what we're going to do right now. So what we're going to do here is that currently the data is actually already been running. So let's go to our browser, and these two are the array of data that we are gonna we're gonna structure it and make it into a repeating group of blocks. So let's go and click here, and as you can see there's the first nested data is called data. So basically whatever the name of the parameter, for example in this case we put data, so that's the first name, and followed by data, and also followed by the this is the index, by the way. So the index is what is the second one. The third one is attributes. So basically you need to put data dot your index, data index, and then there's attributes. So there's three nested stuff that we need to go through before accessing directly our content here. So let's give it a try. So what we can do here instead, we can put data. I mean, the data is actually the name of the parameter, or the name of the object of your API, and then followed by data, and then followed by the index. I mean, the index should be like, let's say 0, and followed by attributes, and followed by that actually the yeah the yeah basically the data itself, block title. So let's go and give it a try. If there's an error, I mean, let me just, we can actually easily simply, let me just close all of this, and I would like to refresh this. Okay, there you go. You have how to code. So basically how to code is the name of the blog title. As you can see here, it says blog how to code. So that's the whole idea of how to access your data in the, I mean, data that's coming directly from API. So let me just clear those things for now. And what we can do, instead of just all of this, we need to pass it, we need to wire this data into this components here. So how do we do that? So actually it's pretty simple, by the way. So what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna pass props. It's called props, by the way, but actually you can name it anything that you like. For example, in this case I would like to name it props, and inside the props is actually what we're gonna send the data itself. So by passing this data into this particular component, you'll be able to receive it in your components code here. So what we can do, we can put curly braces, and inside we fill it with props, and there you go. But as you can see, I mean, the name post has already been used like for all the use cases. For example, post.slice, and then there's post.length. So instead of naming it as props, we can name it as post, like this. And of course, if we were to change it here, we also need to change it here as well. So basically props is basically the data that's being transferred within your component, and you can actually, yeah, basically usually the data will be in the form of object, so that you'll be able to receive it inside your component. So right now let's test whether do we able to receive this post array inside this component. So let's give it a try, and let's go here, before return and after this bracket. So what you can do inside this curly, the main, I mean, before return, we can actually console log, or we can just copy this, I mean, just cut it, and we can just paste it here, so that it only come once, and we don't get yeah, we don't get confused which particular API are we using. So we need to copy this data that's being passed, which is post, and we're gonna fill it in here. Then let's see what happens when we console log. So I'm going to save it all. So let's go to here. I'm just gonna close all of it, and I'm gonna refresh it, and there you go. You are able to receive it inside your block index. So basically this is the way how you are able to transfer your data in the form of JSON API, and from one page to another page. So basically I just transferred the data in the form of object, this particular props. Basically this is basically props. In this case we have named our props as post. So we are passing the data in the form of object, and we are able to receive it inside the components here, as we have just mentioned here. So the next thing is, let's say is that currently there's some few errors here, because the post is not, it's not a function, as you can see. The reason is because of the structure of the API. As you can see, the API is actually nested with data, nested with attributes, and then only you're able to access your data. And that's the reason why your post.slice isn't like a working function. So we need to make it, structure it properly, so that you are able to, so that the code is able to map through your data. And what we can do here, instead of post.slice directly, we need to add data, as we have just mentioned just like this now. and by adding data, it will be able to solve the problem. And there you go, we are able to solve the problem. And the reason being is that because of structure of the API, actually it depends on whatever the structure of the API that you are doing. It can be applicable for any sort of way that you are mapping through your data. So always need to make sure your structure of the API that's correct, and that's where you're gonna make it true. So next thing is that currently we are able to not to able to access the content yet of the data. For example, currently you have only one repeating group of block here, and hence because there's only one block here. So what happens if I add another entry, another block? Let's say create a new entry. In this case, I would say this is, I just want to say block 2, and the inside block content I would say block 2 content, and I'm gonna have a different name. For example, I'm gonna different asset, add more assets. In this case, I'm gonna have a different name for this, and in this case I'll be having this, and upload one asset to library and finish it. And there you go, this is the cover image. So publish date is going to be today, which is 1st of September, and the author is myself, and that's it. And this is just to create a new block here. As you can see here, we have just saved our block. Let's go to our main database. There's 2 block here, how to code and block 2. And let's go to our code here. Let's refresh, and as you can see here, there's only still one block here, and the reason is because I need to make sure your state is published. So I always need to consider it before we moving on. So always need to make sure you're published. And let's go back here and let's give it a refresh, and there you go, you have 2 blocks currently, because it is currently directly coming from your block Strapi data. So the next thing is that, as I've mentioned, we need to make sure that we are able to run through the data. To display the data. For example, as you can see, there's a nested data to there's nested attributes. For example, data and attributes are the 2 nested data that we need to pass through so that we are able to access the actual data. So as usual, we need to go back to here instead of so in this case we have put post.data. We should also put it here. Post.length is not a, we need to put post.data.length is what we're gonna use. And next thing is that, let me just give it a refresh and make sure there's no problem. Close it and refresh it. There's no problem. Okay, that's good. And there you go. So next thing that we need to do is that we need to access the data that's coming directly from the API. How do we do that? So let's go to this particular post. So this is the object, by the way. So as you can see, there are many places where this particular post is being used. Example, post.url, post.image source, and post.category. So let's fill only the part that we are able to fill. For example, image source, because we are able to fill it. But have you seen, and there's an error in, and there's an, like, how do you say, we didn't find the data that's not being that is being used for getting your image. For example, there's no cover image here. As you can see, we have a cover image here, but we don't find it in our API here, and there's a reason for it, and that's something to do with Strapi's documentations. Recently they have updated a version which we need to add more lines of code so that we are able to access image. So image is not by default easily be accessible. So what we need to do, we need to add a few more lines. So let me just go through the basic details. For example, block content and the others. For example, first let's put block title first. As you can see, instead of post dot title, we need to put post dot attributes comes first, because as you know that it is nested. Attributes dot blog title, and let's give it a save all, and let's wait for a refresh. And there you go, we have the title of the code, title of the blocks has been displayed. Next thing is we need to put, let's see what else can we put. For example, there's a description, featured, date. Yeah, that we have a date here. So what we can do, we can go to content manager and let's see the, and it says published at, so we can actually copy this, published at, oh I think no, not published at, published date is better because that's how it's better. Published, instead of block date, we need to put attributes dot published date. So save it again and let's go with a check, and there you go, the dates are being displayed as well. And of course, let's say this, is there anything else that we can fill into, for example, yeah, I think that's all for now. Yeah, we can actually move on with other task, which is the cover image right here. So actually the cover image are supposed to be accessible. It's only the reason is the only fact that's not being able, we are not accessing it is because due to Strapi's newly updated version. So what we need to do is that we need to add like a few more lines of code so that we're able to access the cover image as well, because cover image doesn't come along together with the normal API. So that's what we're going to do right now. So what happens here is that we need to go to our the use fetch function and the place where we have filled the endpoint of the API. So we need to add just a few more characters so that we are able to make the block cover image to be appear inside the API. So what we need to do, we need to put a question mark and populate, and with the next thing is we need to put equals to, and then there's an asterisk sign, and not to forget there is a closing yeah, closing this thing called here. I'm just going to place it right here, and there you go. This is how it should be. This is the structure of how it should be. For example, there's a the name of your Strapi's content, followed by question mark, and there's populate and equals to asterisk, and there you go. This is the one that's supposed to be have to be. Let's give it a refresh, and let's go back to our API. I'm just going to close it all and going to hit refresh so that we don't get confused with our previous APIs. And there you go. Now let's go and give it a check, and data array attributes, and click on attributes, and there you go. Now as you can see, the cover image is able to, you're able to access the cover image. So yeah, even the cover image itself has its own set of nested data to actually to have access to your data, which is URL here. So, and there you go. So what we can do right now is that we can actually structure this particular cover image data, and then we can make it into, you can actually, and then we are able to access it, the data. So what we're gonna do here, we need to go to our image source here, and of course we need, before having access to image source, we need to, of course, put attributes followed by cover image. Okay, and that's the one. And next thing is that once we have already achieved cover image, we need to go to data and followed by attributes, same thing. So data followed by attributes, and the next thing we need to put is the yeah, once we are able to access attributes, the next thing is URL. Okay, so URL. Okay, so now right now let's give it a check. Are we able to access this particular data? So let's just give it a check, and what we're gonna do here, we're just gonna save it, and let's see is there any error going on once we click on refreshed. And as you can see here, we don't actually see the data of the image here because it's supposed to be in the form of link, not just a URL, but also there needs to be a link here. So what you're gonna do here, we need to add like a open and closing yeah, this open, we need to place this open and closing quotation marks, and inside there we're gonna make all this data to be inside curly braces like this. And also we need to start it with like a dollar symbol. And right now what we're gonna do here inside, in front of this, we're gonna add the link of your uh, yeah, your endpoint. So in this case we're gonna put localhost colon and 1337 slash, and there you go. Let's give it a try here, and let's see if it works. Now as you can see here, there's a uh, two slashes, so we should not be having the slashes here. So we are almost done, and we're just going to save it again, and let's see if there's an error. And boom, there you go, you are able to access those images right now. So, and that's the way how you are able to access most of the data in that's coming directly from your API. So that's the whole idea of how to actually to access your data that's in the form of that's coming from Strapi in the form of API. You need to make sure you are able to structure this API and make sure you are able to make it work from one step by step. And let's say if you would like to add more content, more data from this data that's coming directly to your from your Strapi, you can actually make sure you're able to do it the same way. And that's it from this particular part of the video. And that's, I mean, I hope you are able to understand until up to here this part, and hope we'll be meeting in the next video. Until then, thanks.